Pleased to have friend of the show, John Herdman, head coach of the Canadian men's national team, join us here on OneSoccer today. John, first of all, congratulations are in order, pulling points from all three games in that opening window. So 5 points in total out of 9 that were available, sitting second right now in the standings. I want to know what you liked about those 3 games, but because I know your brain is always going a mile a minute, what did you see in those 3 games that you would also like to adjust moving forward?
Yeah, I think in the 3 games, the things I liked was the resilience when we go down a goal and the response. I think that's really important. I think that's a foundation in the mentality that's developed over time. And it's going to be really important through this journey. I think we're going to have some tough games, some tough moments, and I think this team showed, and it was a build-on from the Gold Cup. We had some moments where we conceded early and were able to, gain control of the game again. So I think that was the big thing I liked, Andy. But I think when you look at, what we've got to do better, I think this team are going to continue to grow. As I said, some of them men hadn't played together since June. And I think that's always a challenge when you have a 2-day preparation window for your first game. So there's definitely something we have to do better in how the players come into the preparation for that first game. Some of the thought processes that go into how we select players for the first game as well, giving some insights into maybe the impact of travel, and those guys that were playing on the Sunday as well. So I think there's been a lot of learning. Not very often do you have to play that quickly in a window. And I think it was pretty clear the Hondurans were able to sort of land their team in Canada on the Saturday and, train for a 5-day period. So it's no wonder they started the game strong, and we're not going to be able to close that gap, but we've got to find ways of making sure that we're right at the races for the first game.
There was a lot being made about rotation because of the 3 games in 1 week and, would certain guys sit in certain games? But we did see other players like Alistair Johnston, Richie Larea, Stefan Eustáquio as well. There were guys who put in some good minutes. Did that teach you anything about how you could use the players when it comes to being able to use them maybe for all 3 games?
I think there was a lot of learnings. There are players that their positional realities mean, their meters per minute or their total meters covered gives them an opportunity to play more games. And then there's just their profiles. Some players are built to be endurance players and some players are built to be more power speed players. And therefore, some players are more susceptible to muscular injuries if you're going to push them with high intensity pressing tactics, or you don't give them the recovery time that's required between games. So, I don't have a PhD in this. I have people with PhDs that work with us that have way more insight into, how the human body and specifically the players they come to understand cope with travel, with heat, with altitude. All of those factors, the things that I have to compute to make the right decisions around rotation. And I think to many degrees, we got it right. We had one soft tissue injury, which was, Scott Kennedy. And that's something we have to understand. That's a big learning for us around, how he was brought into camp, how we manage these minutes through that period of time. So yeah, it will require rotation. It's going to require, I think I said this at the beginning, full squads, and then bring in the realities of this next round, Andy, which is yellow cards. That's the new phenomenon now we all have to think about and deal with.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a relief to hear that there weren't too many injuries, and then you're right when it comes to cards, which brings me back to that El Salvador game, because we spoke about it at half and even on our post-game show. there were at least a couple reds there that should have been handed out to El Salvador. But I think what stood out the most, other than that one Tajon Buchanan where he gets up and pushes, get the yellow card, I mean, he got kneed in the head, for crying out loud. I mean, how much do you also talk to your players about maintaining their composure? Because those types of teams, right, like they play that kind of chippy game.
It's tough. It is tough because we want this team to be on the front foot in every moment and to be in the melees. We want all the players to really get around and be part of, making sure teams feel us in every moment and that collective 11 men all in. So it's going to be difficult for us because I don't really want my players to take that backward step in that space. But I'm hoping that not only are our players learning, but like you said, it was the 5th tackle on Tajon in the space of 25 minutes. We'd alerted the 4th official on the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and it was just a surprise that they hadn't issued a yellow card to any other player to protect him. And I think the officials have got to think about that. That's definitely something for the future that I hope that some of the officiating gives consideration to. One, protecting those flair players in CONCACAF, and then 2, just recognizing that giving out frivolous yellow cards are going to have big impacts on this tournament.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, we were talking about that, right? A yellow in the second game, and could you imagine a yellow in game 13? But that will be a conversation for another day, that's for sure. I do want to ask you, though, and I know you briefly talked about it, just the 4 days, I want to say, that was Alphonso Davies, from the injury in the USA game to not playing against El Salvador to going home to the Instagram post to the Twitter clarification to then playing with Bayern that weekend. How did you digest the 4 days that unfolded there around the Davies story?
Well, I think what's right front of mind on this is, as a coach, you're always going to make the best decision for the player. And sometimes that best decision is not the best decision for the fans or the best decision for, the media or the marketing that goes around, Alphonso Davies. But it was pretty clear from the onset that, the injury he'd sustained, he wasn't going to be ready to play for that game in 2 days' time. And this is the challenge with 2-day turnarounds. If he'd had 4 days, he would have been ready to play some part. But in 2 days, the medical staff had deemed that it was a high-risk situation for this young man who, after the El Salvador game, was heading to Bayern Munich to play a match on the weekend, then heading to play Barcelona in Champions League, and he's in that cycle now. So my mind had to shift very quickly to October and to understand that we've got 3 games, tough matches in October that we'll need Alphonso Davies for. So we'd already played, I think, 2 matches. The US game, he came out with the injury. And we were pretty clear coming in, some of the correspondence with the club, that he wasn't ready for 390s. He'd just come off a short pre-season because of his previous injury. And we had to give some consideration to his minutes. So it was like a perfect storm that sort of evolved. And then for Alphonso, in speaking to him, I mean, he talked about posting captions, and it was an internal joke with some of his Bayern players. But look, whatever happens, he's a passionate kid. He wants to play for his country. He wanted to be in that El Salvador game. He felt there was some unfinished business from the Honduras game, and he really wanted to go and light up BMO Field for his country. And that's what I care about. So, the simple conversations with him is, are you good for October? Absolutely. Well, keep yourself injury free, and we'll see you back in October, ready to light it up.
Oh, crazy to think October is just a few weeks away, and we're already going to be talking about the next set of 3 games. But for those 3 games, would you consider calling in any new players, in particular young players, or is now not the time?
Yeah, it's not the time for experimenting now. I think we're in that stage of, we've really built a camaraderie in this group. There's a team spirit and trust that's emerged between people. And you only build that, Andy, when, you know, you've suffered together and you've had these moments you've had to respond to, you know, whether it's the trip to Haiti or, you know, playing in front of no fans against Suriname, et cetera, et cetera. These guys have grown together. So I think if you were to bring in young players, it's just not the right time. The players are really dialed in, and unless that player can really help us win football matches and can add to the brotherhood, and you know that it's not a conversation at this stage. There's just no room for experimentation. But we've got 2 more weeks of games. Guys have got busy schedules, and who knows what's going to happen in these next 2 weeks. And we're already through our performance assessment. So we've assessed the performance of our players. We've looked at some of their gaps, and we're in that analysis stage. So, you know, the next 6 days throughout the selection, and, you know, we'll be clear to bring the best group of men back together again.
And they truly have been looking the best, and we also look forward to that game against Mexico, especially the way Canada played against them in that Gold Cup, taking them to the brink. It's got to be full of confidence. But, you know, John, we talk so much about the players, and they are wonderful to watch when they're on the field. But I have to say, you've been pretty entertaining yourself on the sideline. And, you know, against El Salvador, when we saw the rush of goals, we also saw your celebration. And there was the great little fist pump, against Honduras. And you look into the stand, and we're having a little debate here at OneSoccer, because, I mean, that look is so fierce. Are you eyeing somebody down, or are you celebrating with your players? What's going on here, John?
I don't know. There's some comb over going on there, by the way. I don't know what's going on with my hair. Dear, I must be getting old, man. Eh? Oh, that's brilliant. No, just passionate. It is. It's just. I
blame the wind, John. It was nothing but the wind. That's perfectly fine. Yes, the hair looked great. I love it. Well, you keep the passion, because, I mean, there's some great things that you're doing right now with this team, which is why we are so looking forward to the next round in October. John Herdman, head coach of the national team, who we will see on the sideline once again. Canada getting set for their next games. Of course, as mentioned, that will be against Mexico in Azteca. There will be fans in attendance there, followed by Jamaica, and then that home game October 13th against Panama.